Greetings, foolish mortals. Today we are not going to make mocha pot coffee. Now I know that might seem a little confusing because we're about to do something that looks an awful lot like mocha pot coffee, but it is definitely not mocha pot coffee. Just making sure we're clear on that. These are two very similar stovetop espresso machines that I acquired. This one, which I'm holding up to the camera hopefully, is one which I acquired at a thrift store a few years ago. I've had it around. I do not use it for much of anything, for reasons I'll go into shortly. The biggest claim to fame I have for it is that it's really easy to store because it's got a very nice hook on it. So you can easily store it. And that's really all it's got going for it. This is a cute little thing that I picked up at on auction a couple weeks ago. Took me a little while to clean it up, but I think it looks really quite nice actually. I want to emphasize again, these are very definitely, certainly not mocha pot coffee makers. This one, hopefully you can see. Nope, that is not going to work. Here we are. This one is from GSI Outdoors. Definitely not a Bialetti, definitely not a mocha pot. I swear to you, definitely not. See, this is a mocha pot. Totally different, right? Yeah, sure. This one, slightly more interesting, is I believe the manufacturer... The problem is I'm not sure which one's the manufacturer and which part is the is actually just the model or whatever. It says Caffexpress Mignon Garantita. Mignon would mean small. Caffexpress would mean fast coffee, espresso as we call it. And at the bottom here it says Brevetee, made in Italy. I think maybe Brevetee is the manufacturer. I would say also that it says made in Italy, suggests that it was made for the foreign market. So haven't been able to find out too terribly much, except this is almost certainly manufactured in the 50s, probably early 1950s. The CSI Outdoors one, on the other hand, was made sometime probably, I'm guessing from the color scheme, early 80s, maybe as early as late 70s, but relatively new. Paint's in mostly pretty good condition. Hasn't seen too much wear, so probably not that old. This one is definitely around 70 years old, probably older. These do operate under the same principles of mocha pot. I say tongue-in-cheek that they are not mocha pots. They are totally mocha pots, which are colloquially known as stovetop espresso makers. There's a similarity to an espresso maker, but they are definitely not stovetop espresso makers. I say that because unlike an actual real espresso maker, the mocha pot does not have an independent way of increasing the pressure. The pressure is due to steam, and the steam is generated by heat. So it is getting more pressure than a drip coffee maker, for example, but in order to get the pressure necessary for what we would call espresso, in order to get that hot water through the ground coffee, it has to go a much higher temperature than an espresso machine would achieve, and the result can be a bit more in the over-extracted category. I'll go into a little more about the history of these things shortly, but first let's get these going. So this is the closest to a traditional mocha pot. In fact, it is essentially a mocha pot. I'm sorry, GSI, nobody was fooled. As with every mocha pot style, it has a lower chamber in which you put the hot water. Well, you put water. Some people put hot water. I'm going to actually put cold water because these are a pain in the ass to handle when you use hot water at that point, so I'm just not going to do that. This is the water chamber. You put the water in, and then you have a filter basket with a funnel that goes down, and you put the coffee in there. And then you screw on the top. You've got a gasket and a filter, and the coffee comes out here. For our purposes, I am going to put in right at 250 milliliters of water, which comes to just a little below the, let me see, there it is. Just a little below the pressure release valve, which would open if we exceeded our pressure, and that would officially make this thing a bomb. We don't want that. Putting in the filter basket and putting in the ground coffee. I've got about 225 grams of coffee here, which I have ground to a little coarser than I would for an espresso, but a little finer than I would use for, say, drip coffee. Unlike with espresso, you do not want to tamp this. You just want the grounds reasonably level, and you screw it in place. Now, the big difference between this and a Moka pot is that whereas a Moka pot has a upper chamber to hold the coffee, this does not. It just has a lovely little pipe here that comes out, and the coffee comes out here. Some people would like that. I'm actually not a big fan. I think it makes it a little inconvenient. But I'm going to start heating it right now. This will take a while. We will end up having to, we are definitely going to have to pause this because nobody wants to wait for that. While we do that, I'm going to show the delightful little thing that I have here. This, I'm going to call it the Mignon. It works on the same principle, and in many ways it's very similar. It is much smaller. It only gives you one shot, but it is still a water chamber with a gasket to seal it. It does not have any actual safety features, so this could actually very easily be a bomb. You know, 1950s, gotta love them. The upper part here is the most clever part. The basket, you've got a basket here, and the screen, here we are, screen, is actually removable for cleaning. This is the only steel part of this entire thing. I've checked with a magnet. You take the screen out, it's got some notches here, you've got to get it in just so, and the screen is in place. For this, I'm putting in about 70 milliliters of water. I am then going to fill the basket. The basket gets a smidge under 6 grams of coffee. Actually, probably about, yeah, that's going to be, yep, that's going to be right around 5.5 grams of coffee. Don't worry, that is plenty for the quantity we're getting. That's literally, this is a single dose. Now the entire upper assembly just pops in here. You swing the arm and you screw it in place. And aside from that, it works on the same principle. You've got this pipe here that comes out, the coffee comes out here, and you put your demitasse in. Now we're going to do a double header on this because these are both kind of tiny, and I'll admit I'm kind of hinky about the idea of heating this on. I'm a little worried about these ceramic cups, that's why I'm using ceramic, not glass, because I don't value these cups nearly as much. But those cups are going to be exposed to the heat. I am worried about that. That's why I've got the Mignon off to the side, away from the burner a little bit, so that it's not getting the direct heat right on the ceramic. I'm not confident those cups are going to fare too well anyway, but we'll find out. I mean, in all honesty, I have done this in the past. I've tried both of these. They haven't died so far, but so far is really just so far. Both these will take a little while. The Mignon is much faster because it is a much smaller quantity of water. Now, some quickies about the Moka pot. This is not a Moka pot video, even though these are Moka pots essentially. Moka pots, as I said, they function all the same way. You've got a pressure vessel at the bottom where you put water in. The water heats up under pressure. When the water heats up, it goes out through this thing, which is a basket that contains the ground coffee. And it goes up through a pipe here, which you almost certainly cannot see. Yeah, there it is. And you notice it's got a relatively clever design to make sure that it doesn't just blow the lid off. And it accumulates a product that is not entirely dissimilar to espresso. It is going to be a little stronger and harsher because it is too hot compared to espresso. So if you're a purist, that is not a winner. So, okay. This is the Bialetti Moka pot. It was designed by Alfonso Bialetti in 1933. It's really the characteristic Italian coffee pot. Don't fight the Italians about this. You will lose, mostly because they are prone to violence when it comes to that sort of thing. Just don't go there. It was designed in 1933, but it really didn't take off until the 1940s when his son Renato did a very, very aggressive marketing campaign. But this is where it gets a little... The Italians are not going to be pleased. The idea of using hot steam to make coffee goes back to 1818 by Elard Remmershausen, who made this really big machine to do it. Not the most practical beast. By the way, the small one is already yielding coffee. This will take a minute or so I better talk fast. But after Remmershausen had his idea, an English coppersmith named Samuel Parker came up with a much smaller version called a steam fountain in 1833. But even that didn't really take off until Bialetti took over. But these were popular because they were an improvement over the stovetop percolator. And we are done here, so I am pulling this bad boy off before it actually literally becomes a bomb. We do not like bombs. Alright, so here we have our espresso. I probably could have put in another 20 or even 30 milliliters of water, but I did not. Ergo, it came through really fast. We didn't get a lot of coffee there. I'm going to let that sit for a little bit because it is, as I mentioned, super, super hot. In the interim, I'm going to pause it because it's going to be a while before the other one goes. It's like 4 times as much water, and I did not put hot water in there because I wanted to be able to handle it. And that's probably going to be a mistake because I have no idea how I'm going to move that thing off the burner. Anyway. Oh! Wait. I think we may have... Yeah, let's... Well, I'm hearing a little bit going there, but I don't think it's quite ready to go, so I'm going to pause for a minute and hopefully start once it's going. Alright, we have some beginnings here. I really need to get a new gasket for that thing, don't I? Right. So the pressure is building, but some of that pressure is coming out through the gasket, which is less than optimal. but as we can see, there's actually a fair bit of steam coming out. And there it goes. We have coffee. Now, as with the Bialetti, this is taking a little while to complete. Fortunately, as with Bialetti, it does have a pressure valve, so I'm not worried about it exploding. Like I say, that little Mignon, I'm a little more concerned about. That is a well-pressurized vessel that has no release except out the way that it's theoretically supposed to. So if that little pipe on the Mignon gets blocked, we are in a world of trouble. Yeah, we have definitely some. We very certainly have not the best seal with that gasket, so I'm going to have to get a replacement for that. The Mignon, by the way, definitely a very non-standard today gasket, so I'm going to have to get one custom made. That's going to be fun. That's the word we're going to use, fun. So that 1950 thing is probably going to end up with a silicone gasket at some point. Alright, I'm going to shut this off because, frankly, it's not worth the mess. As you can see, it does stop relatively shortly after you take it off the heat, so there's that. Now let's turn our attention back to the Mignon's espresso and say this is only about 5 grams of coffee for about 70 milliliters of water. Not a lot of water, not a lot of coffee, and as you saw, very fast. You will also find, if you look online, other versions of the Mignon that have 2 spouts rather than a single spout. Haven't tried one, haven't had a chance to. But I would say it probably at least has the advantage of being very, very fast. And since the point of espresso was originally supposed to be very fast, it succeeded. Is it good, is the question. It is a very rich extraction. You can see the oils on the top. No crema, which is normal for the style. Normal to not have crema, I mean. It's been about 5 minutes. It's still pretty warm. It has cooled off significantly, which is good because it was absolutely scalding when it came out. It's not bad. I will still definitely prefer my espresso machine over this, but it is not bad. I would do this in a pinch as a substitute for espresso. And as we can see here, again, characteristic of metal filtered coffee, you've got a fair bit of fines at the bottom. That's pretty normal. It is, the screen is less, not as good as the espresso screens we use, so you've got a little more particulates there. I guess if I knew how to do coffee ground divination, this is ideal, but I don't. Anyway. This is too hot to even pick up. I'm not really going to waste our time with drinking that right at this moment. It's going to be very strong. It's going to be quite bitter. It's pretty characteristic of moka pot coffee, but honestly, I would classify this as an inferior moka pot to the traditional Bialetti. You have to have a coffee cup that you don't care about or is safe for direct heating, just in order to capture the coffee as opposed to the Bialetti's actual pitcher. Not sure what they were thinking with this, but they do still make it, so apparently some people do like it. I guess having that place to put the cup means that you can keep that cup warm for a fair while, but you've also got very strong coffee, and it's the entire thing. So that's a lot of coffee, and I would personally prefer the Bialetti, even if I was in even if I was camping, which is, I believe, the use case for this thing. But again, very similar idea. Both of these are stovetop espresso makers or something like espresso. But definitely liking that 1950s version better. Except for the part where it could potentially become bomb. Yeah. Consumer safety. Not really a thing in 1950s Italy. Alright, so those were two definitely not moka pots. Again, we've got ourselves the Caffexpress Garantito Mignon by Brevetee, and you've got a GSI Outdoors camp coffee maker. And they are certainly not the traditional Bialetti moka pot, in spite of working under exactly the same principles. All right, well, enjoy caffeinating yourselves, foolish mortals.